Thank you very much indeed. Let's have a look at the housing market here in Northern Ireland. Do you reckon we've reached the bottom yet? Well, some local estate agents say they have many houses on their books below £40,000. Colin Barkley is a Belfast estate agent with Morton Pinpoint. Morning to you, Colin.
Morning, Stephen.
Houses in Belfast below 40 grand?
Yeah, we certainly have. Mostly in the north of the city, it has to be said. Some of our colleagues in Lisburn Road Office, Craigie Road Office wouldn't have as many at that level, but we certainly would have a number there. The investors are back into the market, but there are also owner-occupiers, young couples taking advantage of the cheap property that's on there at the moment.
Do you reckon... how do we know if we've reached the bottom?
I don't think we'll ever know, and I think people have, in fairness, felt that we've reached the bottom maybe a number of months ago, but I really think that we're down now to a level where it does not need to go any further. There's still some downward pressure with some repossession properties, but I really do think we're bouncing along the bottom in the main.
You see, you say that it doesn't need to go down anymore, and yet, just anecdotally, I drive past houses which have been on the market for 4, 5, 6 months. The for sale signs are still up, not gone, and you see that, and you take that in, and that means one or two things. Either the prices are too high, or people simply can't borrow the money to buy at any price.
I mean, you're talking about a supply and demand ratio, and there are definitely more properties available than there are buyers.
Which means prices have to come down further.
Yeah, but as I say, I think those that are there are eminently affordable. You've then come down to the banks and building societies and their lending criteria, etc. But again, there's money available at the moment. Again, some of the lenders for buy-to-lets, 40,000 is the absolute minimum. So for investors who are looking for a mortgage, no lender will lend on a property below 40,000. And in fairness, even for owner-occupiers, few will go below 40, but a few will. So there is money there. There are properties available. I'm looking at properties we have. I mean, there's one at 29,950. Got heating, got glazing, ready to move into, and that's the price it's on at, off the Crumlin Road.
The wealth manager, economist Jonathan Davis, often talks to us about house prices in Northern Ireland. What do you think, Jonathan?
I think obviously 30 or 40,000 sounds an amazing price to live in a home, and I don't know the area myself. I have to say I'm in Hertfordshire, just outside the M25, outside of London, but I do recall back in the 1990s, at the end of the economic slump we had then, houses in the north of England were going for £10,000. And then, of course, what we had in the 90s and 2000s was the easy lending policy that continued for 20 years. And that was one of the reasons which fueled the house price bubble in Northern Ireland. My point is this. Just because it's as low as 40,000 doesn't mean it can't go lower. Having said that, of course, if it's a nice home and if it's a nice area and it's got good schools, well, do you know what? If it goes down to 30,000, it doesn't matter because people are going to be in a nice place for as long as they want to be and not spending a lot of money on housing. That's the problem with the economy.
So do you think the market has bottomed out, Jonathan?
Bad for an economy.
Do you think the market has bottomed out?
No, I'm not saying that because, as you quite rightly said, there are properties which languish in the market because the asking prices are too high. We know that, for example, 3-bedroom semis, they're still asking in Belfast, say, 150 to 180,000, but actually the sale prices are more like 110,000. So, no, the potential is further to go. There's no doubt that with a 50 to 60% fall in prices overall, prices are, as the chap says, certainly affordable now and more realistic. As to whether or not they've got further to go, it almost is not the point. However, there may be a little further to go.
Well, of course it's the point.
I certainly think there is in the higher end, there's further to go.
It's the point to people that now want to buy, maybe they're a first-time couple, but they don't want to be sitting in negative equity in a couple of years' time. It's precisely the point, isn't it?
Stephen, if I can come in on that, I think, and I agree with Jonathan, that people should be looking at this on a longer-term thing, and if it's where they want to live and and it gives them the amenities they and their families want and need, if it takes a small step backwards in the short term to move forward in the longer term, as long as they're taking a longer-term aim, then it's fine. We're not talking about the massive drops and suddenly 50, 60,
because
70.
If they're buying, as I say a £160,000 house that actually is worth 110, then they need to be very careful about that. Just because they see a lovely home, just because the asking price is X or Y, it doesn't mean that's the right price. They
I
need
agree
to be
with that.
canny. They need to find out what the true price is, the true value is. The point is, lending is not going to improve for years. The banks are bankrupt. Secondly, and this is so important, 2 points. One, the public sector cuts have only so far scratched the surface. Northern Ireland economy is basically public sector. There's a lot more to come. Final point, at some point, the interest rates are going to rise. That means there's going to be a further dip down the line.
Why would you buy and take the risk, Colin, rather than rent?
Well, I think that we've always felt in the market over here that you want to put roots down, you want to look long term, and you've always seen it as being an investment. That's maybe less the case now in the immediate future, but I still think it's there in the longer term.
What's available in the longer term?
The idea that it's still where you want to live and that the property will start to go up in value again.
Well,
I think
but there's no guarantee of that, is there? There's absolutely no guarantee.
No, I think
that properties will go up
for
again
the next few years, but then I think we will get back to some form of normality, and I think it is years down the line, but I still think that's the way people will want things to go.
But you see, if you think the market's going to be static for the next few years, and if there is a downside risk of properties falling more, then surely the logical thing to do would be to rent over the next few years and wait until you suss out the market.
Yeah, I think for some people rental is the best option. But I think people who are in a stable job, and I accept what Jonathan says about public sector, but people who are in stable employment, stable relationships, and they want to put down long-term roots, I think buying still works. And yes, again, look at the marketplace, do your comparisons, see what the value should be, because yes, there are properties that are on the market that are not going to sell at their current level and they need to be reassessed. But people can do all the comparisons on all the different websites and they know what's happening out there and they know what value and what isn't.
Here's the number, 08459 555 678. I'd be really interested if you've had your property on the market. How long has it been on the market for? Are there offers coming in? What level are the offers at? Maybe you've been a buyer out there and you can give us a sense of the deals that you're getting. 08459 555 678. The text, 81771. The email, nolan@bbc.co.uk, at Stephen Nolan on Twitter. And that's the other reality check here, Jonathan Davis, isn't it? You know, houses might be being sold now, but how much below the asking price are they being sold at?
Absolutely. And reports, academic reports, which are very sensible and factual, as far as I'm concerned, from the University of Ulster and elsewhere, are showing that sale prices are some 20% below asking prices, even after prices have fallen 50%.
Is that true, Colin?
And that is largely a function of the fact that mortgages are very difficult to come by.
I would probably not have agreed with.
The chap there talks about when things get back to normal. That's the phrase these guys always use. Let me tell your listeners, what we have now is actually long-term normality. You know as well as I do that until about 2000, a house in Northern Ireland above 100,000 was the exception to the rule. But when we got the easy lending, particularly in the 2000s and following the Good Friday Agreement, investors came in, lending went through the roof, prices went through the roof. What we're finding now is that bank mortgage lending is now back to 2001 levels. And as they go back to the levels of the prior decade, that is going to be a driver to further falling house prices everywhere. And people should realise, as you've been saying just now...
You're doom and gloom merchant. A couple of minutes ago, you were saying you didn't know if the market had bottomed out. Now you're talking about more further house price falls.
Well, I'm saying that in some sections of the market where something's gone down from, say, 150 to 40,000, then maybe that's not got much further to go. But the higher-end properties, I don't think they've come down as far as the average, and I think they could come down further.
Probably fair to say, Colin, is it, that if you see a house on the market, the offers coming in are well below the asking price?
Yeah, they tend to be. I think it does depend whether that's a house that went onto the market last week or whether it's a house that's been on the market for 9 months and has been reduced a couple of times. So I think you've got to look at all of those factors. Undoubtedly, agents who are going out and the things that they're putting on the market today, they are trying to be realistic in today's market. We're certainly, when we go out to property, we're trying to tell people what we honestly think that they can expect to get. Of course we get it wrong, and of course we also have to factor in that no matter what we ask, people are going to want to chip away at that asking price with an offer. So you have to sort of, as I say, factor that in, and probably if you want 60,000, you probably ask 69,950 to give yourself room to come down. So that's all part and parcel of the market.
Oh, really? So the asking prices within your estate agency are artificially high? Is that what you're saying?
I wouldn't say, no, it's not artificially
10 grand too steep, offer below every time.
It's there to allow for some negotiation. And that would be the case, I would say, with all estate agents.
Why don't estate agents just put a price on a property that they want, that they think the property's worth? Why all this cat and mouse game about overvaluing it or overpricing it so it'll come down?
Well, I think
why all this nonsense?
You've got to look at the way the market went. It always used to be that you asked around about what you expected to get. Then the market started. In fact, you didn't. You just had a set price. It wasn't even offers around or offers over. And I'm going back 30, 40 years when I say that. Then you get to the stage where it's much more volatile. 3 or 4 bidders come in, and so therefore you say offers around and let the market decide. And that's what we're doing at the minute. But we put it on at around about the price that we hope to get, but with a little bit of built-in wriggle room for negotiation, because that's what buyers expect as well.
Here's Chris.
That's just normal marketing, Stephen, in any business.
Morning, Chris.
Good morning, Stephen.
What's your position?
I'm in a partner position a lot of people are at the moment, where myself and my partner are looking to buy a house. We've got our 10%, well, we think we have a 10% deposit. We're looking at houses in South Belfast, so you're typically a bit more expensive, probably in the rest of Northern Ireland. You know, but we're looking at properties which we feel are in around the asking price we can afford to spend. We've looked at previous examples and comparables of what they've sold for in various states, obviously, and I think a good representation is what they're selling for if they're under repossession, you know. But we've looked at a few, coming in around about, they've sold for what we led to believe 105,000, 110,000.
Yeah.
We're looking at 7 properties, 3 agents, and they've got them advertised at 145, 150, 160. And I can understand what the previous caller was saying there, about that is a wee bit, you do have to come in with an offer and kind of settle on a price which you think is fair. But, we have made offers on what we believe to be fair, and the vendors have come back, and I think they've been quite unrealistic. And it's properties where, there's nobody living. Maybe a relative has passed away and they've been, they're forced to sell it. But I don't think a lot of people are too fair on the asking price, And I appreciate where the estate agents obviously have their part to do, and they have to advise on what they think it's selling for. But I just think a lot of them are very, very unrealistic. I don't know if vendors are being told prices to get them to go with certain estate agents, maybe to try and think they're going to get more money than what they're actually going to get. But it's very, very, very difficult. When you look at other areas, and they are selling for what I would believe, is below, is below the asking price. But just some areas, it's just, I think the hype is just unreal, and houses are selling well above market value for what they are. I don't know really
above market value. Above market value in this market.
A prime example, I looked at a house.
Like anybody, Chris, that doesn't get a good deal on a property in this current climate, you've got to ask yourself a question. Are
you looking in the right area? No, Steve, I'll give you a prime example. We looked at a house just beside Four Winds. It was a repossession, and it sold for 105,000. We're talking like a red brick, semi-detached, 3-bedroom with a garage at 105,000. I thought that was very, very good value for money.
Yeah.
We looked at actually now we're looking at 3 properties in the same area, all comparables, near enough identical properties in the same state. And, we've put offers in of 120, 125, and they've come back and said, no, they've been rejected. They're asking 130, 140,000. You know, and I don't know what's hyping that up. I really don't. It's just
so either rent or sit back and bide your time. But somebody that surely jumps into the market now and overpays now, they need their head looked at.
I think you have to look at it as well. You're looking at an area which will it drop much further? There's certain areas of Belfast. I think they're not going to go much lower, unless I'm very mistaken. But there's certain areas which will always command a premium, and no matter, I think it might be a nominal amount, but I don't think they're going to drop that much further.
Yeah.
The other thing to back that up as well, obviously, we're looking at mortgages as well, and we're struggling to get a good rate at 10%, 15%. You really have to be looking at maybe, a loan to value of maybe a 60% mortgage before you're getting deals. And again, there's other things to factor in as well. We're renting at the moment, and obviously I'm not going to say how much we pay, but I think we pay a fair price, which obviously includes our rent and our rates. Then you go to look at the buy yourself. You're looking obviously the price of your mortgage, the cost associated with the likes of the mortgage, your insurance, things like that, and also rates. So it's just a simple case of, well, there's the house, 20% or 5% mortgage. That's going to cost you X amount. It's
Okay.
It's a confusing time for buyers, I think.
Chris, thank you very much indeed. George in Belfast. Morning, George.
Good morning, Stephen.
Yes.
I'll tell you what it is.
Yes.
I live in a development, and there's about 80 houses. Now, if we all decided to sell houses for 200,000 each, I'm dictating the price of that, and everybody else is dictating that price of what they want the house sold at. Not the estate agent. The estate agent should come through and say, but it's only worth 150,000. No, we want to sell our house at 200,000. It's up to me what I want for my house.
It's up to you to put your house on whatever you want, but you might not be able to sell it, George. That's the point. Listen, we're going to leave it there. Jonathan, thank you. Colin, thank you. Morning to you. 12 minutes to 10. 08459 555 678. Don't forget you can get the program.